Final Chimney Breast, Final Chimney Breast, Final Chimney Breast.
Is it time for Vinyl Chimney Breast?
Yes, it's week 5, albums of which I own 3 copies. ACDC Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap from 1976, keeping track of the chronology of the band's releases in terms of what came out in Australia and what came out internationally gets a little bit confusing. This came out after what was their international debut, High Voltage, but before Let There Be Rock, although in America it was never released until after Back in Black had come out in 1980, which led to some confusion since the band featured different vocalists on those recordings and a different bass player as well. I have 2 vinyl copies of this. I have absolutely no idea why, and I have the remastered CD. ACDC again, Power Age from 1978, a brilliant album. I think they're best with Bon Scott. I have 2 vinyl copies of this. I had to get this one because the track listing is slightly different. This has Rock and Roll Damnation as the opening track, which wasn't on the other release, I think the earlier release. And I have the CD, which again has a different track listing because I think it omits maybe Kicked in the Teeth or Cold Hearted Man is one of the tracks which isn't included on the CD for some strange reason. It did come out later on a compilation. And the title is pronounced Power Age, not Powerage, as I thought for about 30 years. I've checked with Angus. Steve Hillage, Fish Rising from 1975, Steve's debut solo release. I believe the sessions for this began whilst he was still a member of the band Gong. There are lots of similar elements musically and sonically to Gong on this, and lots of musicians in common between the 2 bands. On here they're given names like Moonweed and Bamboloni Yoni, which is nice. And I have the remastered CD of this twice, one of them being the one that came in the Searching for the Spark box set. Hillage's next solo album was L from 1976. This was one on which the musicians are from Todd Rundgren's band Utopia. It starts off with his cover of Donovan's Hurdy-Gurdy Man, with his own particular take on that. And again, apart from this vinyl copy, I have the remastered CD and the same remastered CD again from the box set. 1978, Father Abraham and the Smurfs, Father Abraham in Smurfland. Apart from this vinyl copy, I have the cassette version, which is in the Smurf Museum in my downstairs toilet. Every home should have one. And I have the 84 disc box set from 2007, which has a disc of rarities of this album and demos. That includes tracks like Satan in Smurfland and How Blue Can You Get. Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tulle, 1972. Probably one of the best albums of all time, one of my favourites. I have a later 80s repressing of this on vinyl and a remastered CD, but I had to pick up a copy of this in a second-hand shop, which is the original full-size newspaper print with some great stories like Sam Castleman Calls It a Day and Non-Rabbit Missing. Well worth a read. Gary Moore, Back on the Streets from 1978. This was in some ways Gary's first solo album proper. He had a previous release out in 1973 under the name of the Gary Moore Band, and in some ways his solo career didn't begin in earnest until the early 80s, but this was one that featured some members of Thin Lizzy. Brian Downey and Phil Lynott are on this, and it's seen very much as an album of 2 distinct styles. There are some Thin Lizzy style rock songs on this and some jazz fusion instrumentals, which included some of the members of Colosseum 2, the band Gary had been playing with previously, but with Simon Phillips on drums. And I have 2 CD versions of this. It was hard to find on CD for a long time. The more recent issue I have has some quite comprehensive sleeve notes, which is really handy because it was hard to find out information about exactly who played what on this for a long time. Gary Moore again. On this one I'm including Live at the Marquee. This is one of those 2 for the price of 1 sets. It was probably more like 2 for the price of 1.5. Really great, exciting, fast-paced live album. You really get the sense of it being a real sweatbox of a gig. I have actually this exact set, 2 for 1 set on CD, and I have a separate CD issue of Live at the Marquee, again, which has some decent sleeve notes with it. Mr. Big Lean Into It from 1991. I have the original CD release of this and the very recent double disc 30th anniversary set. And this was an album that came out really without a great deal of promotion initially. The band had almost finished the tour for the album when out of the blue there was a big hit single, and they went back on the road again for another year or so, and the whole thing was re-promoted. Suddenly record shops had great big pictures of a train in the window, and people like me were wondering where the hell that was a year previously. Thanks for watching Vinyl Chimney Breast. All the music you can hear in the background is by See Through Head. You can find out more in the links under the description. Please click on everything, and I'll see you next week.